So we being the Biden administration, we have sent billions to Ukraine to protect their borders, even as we have opened our own to the world. Why are we doing this exactly? Well, as Joe Biden has told us repeatedly, doing his Winston Churchill imitation, we're doing it to protect democracy. But of course, the irony here is Ukraine is not a democracy in any recognizable sense. Now, the Ukrainian government has decided that they can impose censorship in our country. The Ukrainian government has issued a blacklist of so-called Russian propagandists, Americans. That list includes Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, Tulsi Gabbard, who's serving in the U.S. military, and Glenn Greenwald, among many others.
Ukraine has released a list of Russian propagandists, and some of the names on the list might surprise you, or they might not. I'm Yasmin Khan with Rebel HQ, and both Tulsi Gabbard, a former representative from Hawaii, and the current senator from Kentucky, Rand Paul, were listed as two notable Americans that Kyiv claims push Russian propaganda. Is this even an I told you so moment? Is it even surprising? It shouldn't be. Tulsi Gabbard has always been an interesting character. She was elected to her state's House of Representatives when she was just 21 years old, becoming the youngest person in her state to do so. She went on to become a representative on the national level, becoming the first Hindu to do so, and she served in the military, completing 2 tours of duty in the Middle East. Running and serving as a Democrat, Tulsi has long been getting the side-eye from a lot of people for being a Republican plant, a dino a la Manchin or Sinema who had the added benefit of appealing to several marginalized groups in the United States. Tulsi is a woman, she's a millennial, and she's a woman of color. But not just that, she's a Hindu. People who look like me aren't very prominent in the federal government, let me tell you, but I don't know if Tulsi was the brown heroine that any of us were hoping for. She became a regular on Fox News, though not necessarily as a Democratic pundit who was trying to break through the noise that is Fox News. She was seen as someone who could potentially appeal to traditional Democratic voters while indoctrinating them with neo-traditional Republican values. And if you listen to the things she says on Fox News these days, they're simply not recognizable as Democratic talking points, nor are they representative of the values of the Democratic Party.
You don't sound like a Democrat to me. I hereby, you can raise your right hand, you're definitely a conservative. So, anyway,
always a pleasure, Sean.
Now, for a recent list of hits, she's defended the MAGA insurrectionists when the Biden administration said that they were the most extreme political organization in the United States. She's called Ukraine's embattled President Volodymyr Zelensky an authoritarian while questioning why Ukraine could possibly want to join NATO at this time and why the U.S. is supportive of the move. She said that Hillary Clinton and the deep state conspire with the media to suppress opposition. She was upset that Steve Bannon was charged with contempt of Congress because other Democratic operatives who have committed, at least in her mind, similar misdeeds have not been charged with anything. She spoke at a rally in support of Our Bodies, Our Sports, an anti-trans organization that works to, quote, keep women's sports female. And then there was this clip that went viral from Russian state TV where the host introduced a clip of her speaking with Tucker Carlson as our girlfriend Tulsi before alleging that she is indeed a Russian agent.
Президент Байден просто вслух озвучил цели своей администрации, которые заключаются в смене власти в России и в отстранении Путина от власти.
Now, I will say, I never trusted her, and I always remember this one interaction she had with Hillary Clinton, an interaction that she actually sued Hillary over, but later ended up dropping the suit. Hillary and members of her team had insinuated back in 2019 that Tulsi was being groomed as a Russian agent, either wittingly or unwittingly. When Tulsi was confronted about this in an interview on The View, her response was this, quote, "Let me say how offensive it is to say that I'm a witting or unwitting asset of a foreign country, working against the interests of my country, a country that I am willing to lay my life down for." So if you are saying it's not deliberately, then you are implying that I am too stupid and too naive to lack the intelligence to know what I am doing. And that is extremely offensive to me and to every woman of color. I was never entirely sure why she looped in all women of color in her statement, but I didn't appreciate being involved in whatever grift Tulsi was trying to pull. Anyway, let's talk about Rand Paul. Rand has most recently made a name for himself by being the bane of Dr. Fauci's existence. He was the first senator to have a confirmed case of COVID, and yet he's fought against practically all proposed or recommended COVID protective measures. Back in 2020, when Kentucky's Democratic governor said that Christians should stay home from church on Easter that year, Rand managed to extrapolate a public health measure to be a prosecution of Christians. That tweet earned Rand a response from none other than Axl Rose of Guns N' Roses, who said that Rand needs to step off. By the way, if it seems like Rand was trying his hardest to keep the pandemic going, you might be onto something. 16 months after it happened, Rand Paul confessed that his wife had bought stock in a company that produces an antiviral drug used in the treatment of COVID. So yeah, he's got a financial interest in keeping people sick. And by the way, members of Congress are supposed to disclose these stock purchases within 45 days, not 16 months. And as a doctor, Rand, that is highly unethical. Didn't you take an oath? I mean, do your oaths mean nothing to you? Sorry, I'm being facetious. I always thought it was funny how we hold people to the oaths that they take as if they matter to people who are already keen on breaking the rules in the name of personal greed. But the fact that Rand continues to present himself as a doctor is funny too, considering his history with board certifications. The story goes that Rand was never board certified as an ophthalmologist, and in 1999, instead of earning his certification from the American board, Rand infamously started his own board and certified himself. He did eventually become properly board certified in 2005, 6 years later, but both of his certifications have since lapsed. Rand has occupied a similar space in the American political zeitgeist as Tulsi Gabbard in that he presents as a libertarian. Libertarianism is an attractive option for many people who see themselves as in between parties, but one thing that is a common thread between libertarians and Republicans, and one of the big reasons why libertarians tend to vote with Republicans more than with Democrats, is the idea of personal freedom and independence. Libertarians want to live their lives without infringement from the government, and honestly, who doesn't? However, depending on how left or right-leaning a particular libertarian is, they might have very different views on things like foreign intervention or universal health care. The party as a party has some conflicting ideologies within it, but I'm sure an argument could be made where that's a positive rather than a negative. Rand Paul, the congressional Republican, who's basically just a Republican despite his association with libertarianism, he appeals to those in-betweeners, or maybe he used to. For example, there was a time when people who were becoming disheartened with the direction of the Republican Party might have found some kind of solace or maybe even hope in a guy like Rand Paul, though I'd imagine that those days are over and he's likely fallen out of favor with that particular group as he's leaned further and further right since Trump's election in 2016. But to today's topic of whether or not Rand is perpetuating Russian propaganda, he's literally parroted Russian state talking points in his commentary regarding Russia's invasion of Ukraine. He said that the Biden administration is to blame for Putin's invasion because if Biden hadn't pushed for Ukraine to enter NATO, Putin wouldn't have had to invade Ukraine. He also said, quote, "You could also argue the countries they've attacked were part of Russia or part of the Soviet Union." That's literally a Putin point, and it's a dumb point. You could argue that, yes, Ukraine was once a part of the Soviet Union because it literally was, but that has nothing to do with the fact that Putin has invaded a now sovereign and independent nation. Now, while this list of accused Russian actors is an interesting development in terms of the Ukrainian invasion, it sort of forces Americans to look at the kind of propaganda we are being fed. Americans tend to look at places like Russia and China, two major players in the global political and economic fields, as highly policed and highly oppressive regimes that silence their people and force fake news down their throats. Not only do we not typically see ourselves anywhere within that realm of reality, but we judge them for falling for the lies that they're being fed. This is not something Americans are immune to. It definitely is something that happens here in the United States, though maybe less obviously, or maybe not on such a wide scale as we've seen in other countries. Thankfully, we still have options as far as where we get our news from and which types of media we choose to consume. And the choices we make in that regard can absolutely shape or reinforce our views on the world and its people. We need to make those choices consciously and carefully. But Fox News, which has both Rand and Tulsi on regularly, is already a champion of Russian rhetoric. That's why we see Tucker Carlson's show translated into Russian for Russian audiences, but it could also be why the pro-Russian stances of some GOP lawmakers isn't convincingly Russian. At this point, it's just Republican. When the messages are literally the same, how does one draw a distinction? All right, lots to think about there. If you enjoyed this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more like it. And also, you can follow me over on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks for being here.